ones. How are you feeling in this great day? Good. Half of us do feel wonderful. The other half are making up their mind as to whether or not they're wonderful. Well, I'll make up your mind for you. You are. And so we're moving in now deeper into this journey that we're all on, endeavoring for all of us to leave the outer plane of worry and rumination and manipulation and cajoling and all the rest of it that is there for us to experience in the outer world, the world of the senses, the world of the egoic mind, the mortal mind, the humanness of ourselves that forgets sometimes, as wonderful as it can be, but forgets a lot of the time because of all of the freneticism that's going on there. Well, today we're invited to leave the 3 lower realms of consciousness and enter into the 4th realm of super consciousness, cosmic consciousness, sacred consciousness. And this 4th level, this 4th mansion, as the great Saint Teresa would call it, as we looked at the castle as the metaphor for the soul, this 4th state of being forms the bridge, forms the portal, forms the door, forms the threshold by which we enter into that interior state of the illuminated soul. And it's an awesome, wonderful state of being. It's the initiation into the higher realms of consciousness that 4th dimension is. And you've all had glimpses of it, even no matter how fleetingly, you've all had glimpses of it, and so have I. And we want to have more and more of those glimpses, which is an experience in the segment of a second sometimes, but nevertheless it is the experience, and that's where we want to go. And so we're leaving now the sense world with all of its freneticism, as I like to see it, all of its busyment of the embodiment, all of its doing and getting and spending and accruing and accumulating and forming and building and constructing whatever it is we're into, whatever that looks like. Whether we think it's good, bad, or indifferent, that's what we tend to do. And a lot of it has to do with this. And because we're working so busy and so hard and so diligently, we think we're getting somewhere. Well, we are, deeper into a hole. Because the more you go around in the circle, the deeper the circle becomes. Now, we want to stop that. We want to stop that. If we're doing it in any way, we want to stop it. And we want to be expanding, 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 and expanding. That's what we want to be at this time in our lives. That's why you're sitting in these chairs. And so we have to leave all of that nervousness, all of that anxiousness, all of that egoic state of mind that is always concerned about something or another, or scared about something or another, or has to about something or another, or must about something or another, and so on. And it's that kind of fraught energy that keeps us clenched, and stops us and blocks us. So from that, we're going to move out of what we call the personal human realm into the interpersonal soul realm of being. And what does that look like? Well, it's very difficult to describe what the fourth dimension looks like, because there are no words to describe it, but we're going to do it anyway, aren't we? Because that's what we do as human beings. We endeavor to describe things and share what that looks like or feels like. And so you and I have the option once and for all to understand how life works, because success has to do with understanding how things work. And we're endeavoring here as spiritual students to understand how life works. Well, okay. On the physical plane and in the outer world, life works like I'm here, I'm supposed to get something. How do I get it? And when I get it, how am I going to keep it? What is mine? you see. So that's, and it's an unconscious thing. It's an unconscious thing. So it's about getting. A lot of it is about getting and getting and getting and getting and getting. And to get, sometimes it's about taking and taking and taking and taking and taking. That's what happens on the outer plane. Now, this is not a judgment about it being good, bad, or indifferent. It's just an observation, not putting good, bad, or indifferent on any of it. It's just how it is. And if you observe yourself and others, you'll see that that is a pattern that all of us are engaged in to some level or extent or another. And so in that, there's that certain amount of what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, and perhaps some of what's yours should be some of mine, and so on, and so on. So there's all of that that goes on. And we're not so generous, and we're not so liberated to the fact or the point where you and I can be absolutely, truly congratulatory about somebody who succeeds. If we're being honest, we're not all that excited about your success. We'll go through the machinations and the motions. Oh, well done, isn't it great? I'm delighted for you. In the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have so many more talents than that, and if he or she could do that, I could do so much better than that. I just need the right opportunities, the right people in my life, and blah, 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 blah. There are very few of us who can walk up to another colleague or person and say, you know what, I so rejoice with you, I so celebrate with you, I am so happy for your good, and be genuine with that. Usually there's a little shadow somewhere there. And the shadow could be disappointment with yourself for not succeeding to that level. And just a berating of yourself, that's still a shadow. It's very shadowy, the outward world. And within the shadowland of that, there's a whole lot of jealousy, there's a whole lot of envy, there's a whole lot of disappointment, there are many wounds and scars and all of that stuff that goes with it. Disappointments all over the place, and certainly disappointments in love. Because in this realm, love is personal. It's human love, it's personal love. And human love and personal love has to do with, I will love you if you love me. I might love you to the extent that you love me. I might not, it just depends. Human love has to do with, you will earn this love. You will, and it will be operated upon a rewards and punishments scheme, you know. And there'll be a lot of withdrawing, withholding, and so on. And mood swings and expectations and so on and so forth. That's what happens in the human realm of love. There'll be a lot of restriction and suspicion and anxiousness and sometimes even fear and so on that goes on around human love, if you're just looking at love from that level of humanity. Now, when we are ready to cross over from that into the fourth dimension, the dimension of sacred love, of cosmic love, of spiritual love, of unconditional love, all of that recedes and fades away. When I'm in this unconditional state of loving, and I can only get there by taming the reptiles of all of that stuff that goes on in personal love. And let me tell you, in every personal relationship, there are a ton of reptiles that we are ready to put on each other at any given moment, that we disappoint or misbehave or whatever. So we have to have come to terms with those reptiles. We have to have appeased them. We have to have peaceful, loving reptiles swimming around the moat of our castle as pets. Fluffy, cuddly pets before we can enter into the fourth dimension of unconditional love. What is unconditional love like? It looks like freedom. Freedom to breathe, freedom to be yourself. It looks like support. It looks like having a cheerleader or leaders in your midst. It looks like something that's consistent and constant and supportive, and something that is in celebration of you and your uniqueness. It looks like something that doesn't get needy or demand or expect or manipulate you to be as I wish you to be. Because when people tell me that they fall in love and this and that and the other, I'm thinking to myself, well, I wonder what that means for those individuals, because what the understanding has to be below that is, I absolutely know that there's no way you can love me the way I want you to love me. I know you can only love me the way you can love me. And that has to be enough for me. I have to be okay with that. I can't start chiseling you and forming you and making you and turning you into my image and likeness. I can't do that. It's not mine to do. And yet that's what goes on in relationships, whether they're relationships within a family context or a work context or a spousal context. That's what happens. We walk into that ceremony, I'm telling you, on our hips is our chisel and our hammer, and we are ready to get going. Oh yes, you're okay at the moment, honey, it's all right, you're a starting point, that's all. But when I'm finished with you, you'll be perfect. You'll be perfect. You know, there's a little joke that used to say, thoughts before marriage, I'll and the altar and him. Thoughts after marriage, I'll alter him. You know? And so we have to get out of that nonsense now, because that doesn't work. Have you noticed how it doesn't really work? You know, I can be as all demanding as all get up, and it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen, because we're not made like that. We're made to be free, unconditioned and unconditional. We're made to be much more than that. Much more than that. And the only way a beautiful relationship is going to work, if I myself am intact, if I'm congruent, if I am in integrity, if I am safe and secure and sure of myself because of the relationship I have with that which is greater than me, and I allow that which is greater than me to counsel me, to be the wisdom that leads me, to be the guidance that leads me, to be that which keeps me understanding I'm here for one thing and one thing alone, and that is to self-actualize or God-realize, whatever you want to call it. That's why I'm here. And there's a process to it. And let me tell you, you and I are not going to spiritually mature without rolling up our spiritual sleeves and getting to work on it and doing our spiritual work and being engaged at that level. And at that three-dimensional level, the first and second and third dimensions or mansions, you and I, it's work. It is work. I have to keep catching myself out. I have to keep doing this to myself every now and again and going, you know, that's not what you started out with this morning in your mind. So knock it off now and stop it. Get back on track. Get back on track. And listen to the greater self within. The questions you and I have to ask ourselves is, today, when I show up, do I want to come from that fourth dimensional awareness of unconditional love, or do I want to stay at the egoic level of a demanding personal love? Demanding personal love, commanding spiritual love. Spiritual love commands us into an alignment that gets us into sacred service and gets us out there knowing I am here not to get and not to take, but to give from the fullness and the magnificence of my inner core, the very presence and the very power of my Creator itself. That's what I'm here to do. And I have to find the way of how I can best be that channel of allowingness and givingness. I have to chisel for myself an outlet so that what's coming in, the inlet that brings in all that wonderful grace and power and strength and love, unconditional and unconditional, I have to make an outlet for that so that I can let it out again, because that's all I am, is a channel, is a vessel, is an outlet for the light divine that is within me, which is unconditional love. Now I have to find a way of doing that. And that's where spiritual practice comes in. How do I go about that? I go about that by committing to a spiritual practice at least one every single day. And if it's only going to be one every single day, it's got to be this one. It's got to be my giving myself the opportunity to be quiet, to be still, to listen. So that I can listen to what? To the wisdom of my soul. So that I can feel the illumination of my soul. So that I can, in doing that, listening to it and feeling it, assuage everything that needs to be assuaged and mend and fix and heal whatever seems to require it. That's how I do it. And then what? How do I become the outlet? I think peaceful thoughts. I choose to think peaceful thoughts. I make it my responsibility every day to think peaceful thoughts, to feel peaceful feelings, and to act peacefully. That's how I do it. There's no other way, or lovingly, or generously, or whatever sweet virtue I want to hone in on for that day. But that's what I'm here to be. I'm not here to be a doer. I'm here to be what I am created to be, and not allow any disappointment, either caused by myself or another, to get in the way of it, but to be able to rise up out of the disappointment and get over it and go back into, at the moment, I'm anything but peace, but the peace of spirit itself is within me. At the moment, I know nothing about going about this thing. I don't know what to do. But the knower in me knows, and I will allow that guidance. I don't know what to do in this situation. But the doer within me does. So I will allow the doer in me to do through me and by me and as me. It's always that kind of chatting that we need to have with ourselves throughout our entire day, so that we don't scare ourselves silly and get frightened about all that presents itself to us out of the shadows of the exterior world. We will not go into the woods and stay there. If we find ourselves in the woods, we're knowing that we're passing through. We're coming out on the other side. And it's not a permanent state of place of residence. That's what we have to know. But it requires a faith, an unbreakable faith, for that to happen. And that faith is not going to grow in you and me unless I am going to sit myself down and be quiet and be still and shut up all the outside goings on and listen and listen and listen until eventually I don't have to do that. Because when I'm in the fourth dimension, when I've gone into sacred love, when I've gone into the understanding, the realization, the feeling, and the experience of an interior state of being, which is an invisible state of being, which is an out-of-this-world state of being, and I come back from it, I don't have to do anything. I will not be finding myself saying, oh, I really must now do this. Oh, I really should take care of that, all with regard to good. I really should make that phone call and make that person feel a little better. I really must go and visit so-and-so because they don't have much going on in their lives. I really have to do that, and I really must, and I really should, and I really... There's none of that. There's none of that anymore. It just happens through you. You don't have to remind yourself anymore. It's an impulse in you, and you respond to it, and you just do it. And you are it, and you be it, just like that. And you don't have to think about it, analyze it, and review the situation. You don't. You just become the activity, the action, the impulse, and you respond to it. But then it's not you, is it? It's the power, it's the presence of the great within you that's doing all of that. And you're just now, you've become its outlet. You've become its channel. You're allowing the illumination of your soul to come out, to go through you, and to pass it on and around and to uplift as a consequence of it. How great you are. How great you are. How important you are, how potent you are. Every single person in this room, regardless of what horrible, awful thing that's going on in your life, that's just a horrible, awful thing. It's a thingy, it's a condition, it's not the truth of you, it's something you can transcend. It's something that you can be transformed by if you're in relationship with it from that state of awareness that you have no power over me because you're not the truth. You're a fact, but you're not the truth, and I will not allow you to become my truth. You will not have dominion over me because there's something much more powerful within me that you must bow down to. You must. You don't have an option. And I can do this, I can be this, I can feel this if I stay out of fear. But only if I stay out of fear. Do you believe or don't you believe that you're more than just this? Do you? Because if you do, you are unstoppable. There's no end to the good that you can realize. There's no end to what you can transcend and overcome. No end. There's nothing in the way of you in realizing the good that you desire if you know, feel, and state over and over again, I am more than this. I am so much more than my ailment. I am so much more than my challenge, whatever it is. I am so much more than the condition I find myself in. I am so much more than the circumstances that surround me. I am so much more than that. And be like that gentleman who came to the realization that he was more than he thought he was. And he wanted to be a channel of light and a channel of love in the world. And his job was in sales, and his sales was selling entertainment centers to his customers. And every day he got up, he blessed his job, he blessed his customers, and he knew that every piece of equipment that he sold was a channel for light, was a channel of grace, and would bless wherever it showed up. And he entered into that kind of negotiation with his people, helping them as best he could, and not overselling and not convincing them that they needed something if they didn't need it, but expressed to them what it could do and what the purpose was and how it could be used for good, for education, and so on, and how it could be shared, and how it could create celebrations, and so on and so forth. And the man became a mystic out of the monastery, like another young man did too, who was once a druggie himself, and became a drug lord, and sold drugs and collected money and beat up people and so on and so forth. And you never know when God comes to you. And God always comes to you in the fourth level. God will come. You don't have to seek God anymore. God will come to you at the fourth level. This guy was driving his car one day, young fellow, and he turned on the radio, and it was Jesus on the radio calling him. He said, what a load of baloney. Change channel. It was Jesus on the radio calling him. Change channel. It was Jesus on the radio calling him. Change channel. And it went on. And eventually he got so crazy, he pulled into a cheap hotel. And he stayed in that cheap hotel for 3 days, crying his eyes out, not knowing where he was, what was going on, and what was happening. And at the end of that, he came through it. He came through it knowing that, yes, he was done with the life he had been leading, and now he was ready to change that around and become a companion of Christ and understand that he had a great friend in Jesus. And that man to this day is a mystic outside of a monastery doing great good in the world. You never know how God is going to come to you. And you don't have to be all holy as get up for that to happen. You don't have to wait until you're so pious and so sanctified and so sanctimonious and so on and so forth for God to come. God will show up when God decides to show up. And it might be in the midst of despair. It might be in the midst of an awfulizing of your life in some way. It could be in the midst of great joy. It depends. It just depends. But remember, to God, to the creator of our being, to life, every aspect of itself is holy. Every aspect of itself is essential, and every aspect of itself is highly, deeply, hugely loved and cherished, and always will be. That's who you are. Do everything you can. Do what it takes to get to that fourth mansion and beyond, and be blown away by the bliss of it, the power of it, the light of it, the awe of it, and the love of it. That's what you and I can do, and so it is.